2029, pursuant to the recommendation of Circuit Court Judge Vicky Alspaugh. Approval of the following appointments to the Berry County Land Bank Authority Board. Dan King for a one-year term beginning May 1st, 2023 and ending April 30th, 2024. David Jackson for a one-year term beginning May 1st, 2023 and ending April 30th, 2024. And Jim McManus and Chelsea Foster for two-year terms beginning May 1st, 2023 and ending April 30th, 2025. Approval for Jennifer Heinzman on behalf of the Berry County Land Bank to apply for a blight elimination grant from the State Land Bank Authority and to authorize Jennifer Heinzman to sign the application, contracts, and amendments if the grant is awarded. Approval of the 2022-2023 Child Care Fund Plan and Budget Amendment and authorize.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Hatfield, support by Getty for all items listed on the consent agenda. Discussion is not allowed and a roll call vote is required. All those in favor vote aye, opposed nay. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Campbell.
Aye.
Doster.
Aye.
Getty. Aye. Hatfield.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Tunison.
Aye.
Carlton.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye. The consent agenda is approved. Presentations. Paul Romer with Faro. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. So for you guys to show what we have. All right, so good morning. My name is Paul Romer. I'm a field applications engineer with Faro Technologies. I was invited here by Berry County Sheriff's Office. So they are looking into purchasing a laser scanner, 3D laser scanner, for use in collision reconstruction, crime scene documentation, and pre-incident planning, such as scanning schools for blueprints and 3D walkthroughs. So Sergeant Ware here asked me, you guys had unfortunately a fatality last week on M37. He shot that with the total station, which they currently have, which shoots one laser point at 1 second or at a time. This shoots 2 million at 1 second. So I want to show you guys the comparison of the two. So I believe in the file back there, be able to open up that file I gave you.
What's the name again, please?
M37. Then if you guys would like, I'll show you what this does too. It just spins around in a circle and shoots millions of laser points at 1 second.
Okay, once inside laser M37, then what?
We'll start with the, what did you name it? AOI final rest. So this is, if you can see on the screen, this is from the total station that you guys currently use. Again, this is 1 point at a time. So one officer or deputy is standing there working the machine, and another one's holding a prism on a pole. And you walk lane line to lane line, one tire at a time for the car. And it draws a simple document like this. So what they're looking to purchase, if you go to the one that says, let's go top down. Should be the Nitro PDF here. So this is all from 3D laser scanner data. Again, it shoots 2 million laser points per second and creates an accurate diagram of the roadway. So on this, I was able to take accurate measurements, they're accurate to plus or minus 1 millimeter at 30 feet. And then I placed in the two vehicles because we came after the fact. And you can document your crime scenes and collision scenes from this scanner and software. You can also do different analysis such as bullet trajectory if there was a shooting, crush analysis on vehicles, animate the vehicle based off the black box in the car to show what happened at the time of a collision. Do you mind going to the one that says Jeep? I apologize, my software only let me put it in side or PDF here. So this just kind of shows a 3D view. Again, there's no pictures here. That is, of course, they put the hay down yesterday before I was able to scan it. But that's just an image of where the Jeep landed and the Malibu, and it shows you kind of the different elevation here that you'll get from a laser scanner. Appreciate that. And then there's a folder called Scene to Go on there. And it should be the one that says Start Scene to Go in Windows. It should be the very last one at the bottom inside that file, please. when the deputies, investigators are done scanning a scene and putting their project together, you create what's called a scene to go. This is your court deliverable. Do you mind clicking on the eye, the little eye icon there? Thank you. And then on the top, should be a little map on the top here. Yep. So this essentially creates a Google Street View of the crime scene. So this is used, you can put it in 3D mode, but this is gonna take the images from the scanner and let you walk through your scene. So if you don't mind, you can click on the one that says, just any of them, you just double click on them. Thank you. And now it allows you, gives you a panoramic photo to move through your crime scene, or your collision scene, or whatever you scan. So you can actually rotate around in that software. And if you just double click on the next, I call them the teardrops, it'll move you down to the next scan position. So now you can walk through your crime scene very easily in court or wherever you need to present to. You can also take measurements in this software, add video, add photographs, radio recording if you needed to. So pretty interesting software here and very useful for crime scene and collision application. So the last thing inside that file is there's a video. It says pre-incident planning of school. So this is another thing you can do with lasers. You can go into schools and churches, important infrastructure in your area, and you can create a 3D diagram. So if, God forbid, there was an active shooter situation, officers have an accurate layout of the school. So it should be, I created a video of the school. Pop up in just a second. If my files decide to transfer over to the hard drive.
Stand by.
Paul, can I ask a question while we're waiting for that?
Yes.
When you said that you can do compression, does that mean that you can tell how fast a vehicle is going to make?
Yeah, so previously I was a law enforcement officer myself for 10 years down in Kentucky, and fatal car accidents was my specialty. So you can use what's called a crush analysis, and you take different points from the damage and measure it out, and then take an exemplar vehicle, so one that's not damaged, and measure from like where the bumper is, and it'll tell you how fast the vehicle's going. So doing it by hand is a pain in the rear, let's just say that, and it takes a couple hours to do. In the software, you can do it in about 3 minutes. And it's accurate. I've compared it with my coworkers, and I've had lots of AGs that use it in court every day.
Okay, thank you.
So this is a school, I believe this was up in New York State actually. So it just shows that you can diagram a school. Took about 7 hours. One of my coworkers did this one. And I want to say, I'm sorry, this one was like 4 hours. It was like 228 laser scans. And then they used drone image actually to get the roof. The reason you don't see the roof is in the software, you use what's called a clipping box, and you can kind of hide the roof in it, so you're not deleting any points or any evidence, but you can hide it because you're in the 3D world now. So you can see in from a top-down view of each room you're in. So again, very important to say it was a crime scene. You could show where a witness was standing or where incidents occurred just from a top-down angle. But you can also make 2D diagrams off of this that are HD. So each officer or deputy could have that in their vehicle if they were responding to an incident. Your dispatch center could have this and walk them through the school via radio. So, anything else you want me to touch on this, or?
No, I think you did a great job. And just to kind of let you guys have a little background on what we're looking at this for. Currently, the total station, it's there's a lot of user error with it. We have one deputy or officer holds a pole, and they have to try to hold it perfectly straight, level, up and down, which is nearly impossible to do. And if they're off by even just an inch, our measurements overall can be off by feet. So when it comes to accuracy, that's an issue, especially when we're recording skid lines, locations of vehicles, things like that. With this, there's no manipulating it. It comes with a certification of accuracy. And our total station, we can only use it outdoors. this we can use indoors. So we have crime scenes. The prosecutor's office, they want to be able to walk through the scene. We can give them the video file, like the school was done, instead of having to have them go all the way out or get buses to take jurors out to a crime scene. We have it. It's recorded exactly how it was when we were there. So that's some of the big benefits as to why we're looking at this versus trying to do another total station, which our current total station is outdated. We can't get the parts for it. Yesterday, I spent 45 minutes plugging it in, unplugging it, plugging it back in, before it finally let me download it. So we're just at a point where it's exceeded its life expectancy, and we're trying to move to newer, better technology that's gonna serve the community a lot better. So
How old is the total station?
2011 or 12? I think 12. 2012 is when we got it.
So it's 10 years old. Okay.
We are going to try to present this to the board next week as commissioners to implement this for requests for it. The other best part about this is if it goes to trial for crime scene type thing for the prosecutor, Julie Nakfor-Pratt, they actually have expert witnesses that will come in and testify, and it doesn't cost us a thing. We just have a yearly maintenance that we have to do for everything, so.
Yeah, there's yearly maintenance fees, and then I actually happen to live next door. I live in Wayland, so just pretty lucky that I live there. And then since you touched on on this, one thing I forgot to add is every scan is digitally hashed after it gets done scanning inside the software. What that means is it applies a signature that cannot be changed. So nobody can manipulate the data. And if for some reason somebody can, there's a calculator you can plug it into, and it'll tell you that it's been corrupted and changed, but it's all assigned on the spot, and that was created for the federal government.
All right, so this is primarily use will be accident reconstruction or accident documentation.
So accident documentation, crime scene documentation, so if there's a homicide or something of that nature, and then you can, again, pre-incident planning. So you can scan all your schools, you can scan your courthouses, any major infrastructure.
So this is recording skid marks, it's recording everything involved with the vehicle collision?
Correct.
Okay, and you said, in a crime scene, it could also project bullet flight?
Bullet trajectory analysis, so if a bullet, we'll say a bullet struck a beam here, it obviously creates an entry hole. So you stick a rod in there to figure out the trajectory, and the software can recognize that and tell you approximately where the shooter came from.
Okay,
So it was just used in Louisville. They just had their big bank shooting a few weeks ago. They use this on that. Nashville uses it a lot for that. I think Kent County's even used it for bullet trajectory. So it's used all over the country.
Nashville, Tennessee, by the way.
Tennessee, sorry. Yeah, sorry, Tennessee. Apologize. Yeah, they just used it in all their major incidents. The school shooting the other week too.
so this is tied into GPS coordinates?
Correct. Yep. Accurate GPS coordinates, and actually.
Is it cellular or is it running off?
I think it's satellite. That's a good question. I'm not really sure on that one.
Okay.
So I don't create it. I just get to teach it and play with it. So.
Okay, questions from commissioners? Sounds like we're gonna hear about this next week in some more detail.
Mr. Chair, since we have a prosecutor here, can we ask her whether she's supportive of this technology?
Yeah.
And the reason we had him come in today and requested it today is because he teaches on Tuesdays, so this is one of the only Tuesdays he could come in and do this with us.
Okay.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Are you supportive of this technology?
Absolutely. So myself and Assistant Prosecutor Jessica Payne, who's does a lot of trials. I do some trials. She does a lot of trials. I had her come with me. We sat through, a couple hours maybe? You know, with questions, and Paul was so helpful. But the stuff, it's amazing what this can do. And we do have other agencies, the state police have some technology as well, and we're extremely appreciative of that, but different agencies do different cases. They do different investigations. Granted, they come together sometimes and help each other out, and we appreciate that, but I think it would be excellent if the Sheriff's Department could have this technology. But one of the other things that really grabbed at me was the schools, the hospitals, the things that this technology could do to prepare our law enforcement for a disaster. God forbid I don't want a disaster in our county, but you just don't know. We don't know anymore. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, I'm not sure I would have included that into this discussion, but we have to. We have to, and we have to be the best prepared we can be. So he did a lengthy presentation to us about the schools and, you know, any building really, hospitals, courthouse, whatever you want. And to me, that was really important to our community as a whole. And to have the sheriff's department, to have a police department be able to get, you know, to be able to implement that, so to better the safety of our community, I think is amazing. But as a prosecutor, I tried a couple of homicides over the last 2 or 3 years, and one of them involved a rampage shooter. And he injured, or there were 17 victims, 2 deceased. And we did have technology from the state police that I think Scott was there, Burnett. And I think if we'd have had both, I mean, Scott was there and was able to take some measurements and so forth, but I think if we'd have been able to have both, we would have been able to put that technology together. We were still able to get the case across to the jury, and it came out successfully, thankfully. But I just think anything we can show a jury, or anything we can look at, I go out to the scene of a homicide personally, I prefer to do that, but if I had something I could have that I could study when I'm studying for trial, I think that would be excellent. So yes, our office supports this.
And you would think that the defense office would support it as well?
I think that's helpful to them too, because part of our job isn't just to try cases, it's to study the evidence and see if we really should be trying a case. That's part of our job on both sides. So I think this would be an excellent tool for them too, because, you know, they have the obligation of representing people that are accused of crimes. And so I think this would be an excellent tool for their side as well. And yeah, so we are very supportive. And Scott has just been so helpful in helping us understand over the years, Scott and then his predecessors with crash reconstruction. And it's real helpful.
Thank you.
Dave. Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you. I was able to attend the presentation over the Titan Center, which was a very good job, by the way. Much more in depth, obviously, because time concerns. But as a guy that thought the black and white TV was a big deal, this thing is something else. It's just incredible the time it'll save, manpower, and the accuracy. It was really a great presentation, and I just really appreciate it. And be very useful.
Awesome.
Commissioner Smelker, just real quick, we do have it on Jump Drive if anybody wishes to see the whole presentation from the other day.
Good to know. Commissioner Smelter.
Does anyone else in Berry County, any other police agencies like City of Hastings or nearby counties have this?
Kent County has them, they use them. Allegan County wants one, they haven't gotten one yet. The next closest would be Portage, PD has one, Battle Creek, Kalamazoo County or city?
I want to say city. Oh, sorry. In this area, you have Kent County has one, City of Wyoming, Battle Creek, Portage, Berrien County down closer to Indiana, Holland. I think there's a couple more. There's about 10 within an hour's drive, 10 different agencies within an hour's drive that has it in this
Thank you.
area. And then, one more thing. The thing about the times, we talked about time. The scans we did yesterday took about 45 minutes for 10 scans to collect all that data. So,
And then in about an hour and a half, I got 56 points on the total station. So you're talking millions and millions of points that can't be manipulated, that are easily recorded and measurable, versus 56 points that can be manipulated and aren't necessarily completely accurate. I mean, we talked about possibly over a foot off on the measurements. So.
Training-wise, obviously new technology, that's not something you're going to hand off to anybody to use, so.
correct. So it's either 3 or 5 day training. And what we have offered, Scott, is since I live so close, the training cost is essentially wiped out, and I'm going to come do a 3-day class essentially for free to train everybody and certify up
Okay.
to 6 officers, I believe, or deputies.
And that training also, prosecutor's office or administration can attend. They're not trained, but they can attend for no cost. So we already talked to the prosecutor's office if they want to send a couple other people down to that training to watch and see what we're going to be doing. They're allowed to attend that. So it's six total deputies that can actually be trained through Faro. But then, even if like a commissioner wanted to come to the training, they would be allowed to see what we're being trained on, to understand the technology and what our capabilities would be.
Awesome, thank you. Commissioner Getty.
Is it practical to seek partnership with other law enforcement agencies like the city of Hastings or our villages that have their own departments?
So when it comes to the accident reconstruction side of it, I am currently the only accident reconstructionist in the county in any of the agencies, with the exception of Michigan State Police. Berry Township, Prairieville Township, they each have one officer from each township that is going through the process right now, but are not reconstructionists yet. So to try to partner up as far as that aspect goes, I don't see it being possible. If you're talking crime scene, things like that, again, now we have an issue of how many people are gonna have their hands on this technology and this equipment and the potential of it getting lost, damaged, things like that. So I would say, as far as my perspective, I would wanna keep it within the sheriff's office, so it's ours. We know we're gonna have, policy in place on how it's supposed to be used and handled, and that way it keeps safe, it keeps it updated. We don't have to worry about warranties and things like that, because we're gonna do exactly what Farrell tells us to do with it.
I'm not sure if that was the question you were actually asking, but we are also here we help each other out. So if they request our assistance, if we have the ability at that time to do it, we'd be more than happy to assist them in any of their scenes if we have the ability to do it at that time.
I was thinking twofold of being able to process scenes throughout the county, in various jurisdictions, but also being able to help with the expenses of it.
Thus, right now, it's roughly just under $63,000 to purchase this whole system, and that's including everything, basically. So that's the main thing, and if we had to turn around and purchase a new total station, we can't repair the old one. We just can't do it. And thus, the ability, what this does, and we can talk more next week, because it'll be the cow, but the ability, what we can do with this one versus a total station and purchasing another total station, or not having anything for our crime scenes, for jury, or for the courts and everything. That's one of the main issues right now, because we want to do our best to try to get the evidence processed the correct way and be there and have everything we can provide for the prosecutor's office, as well as for any crime or crash that happens. So.
Thank you.
State police using this technology, or are they using a different system at this point?
Currently, I don't believe they're using any 3D laser scanner technology that I'm aware of. I think it's kind of based post by post.
Okay.
I'm not aware of them around here either. I don't know of.
I know they're not using it for their crash scene around here, but like most things with the state police, they're very traditional, and moving advance from the total station, they just haven't gone away from that. I never got a true answer as why. The only thing I ever heard from their 6th district reconstructionists or 5th district reconstructionists was, this is what we use, and it's what we always used. So it's kind of like the old red bubble on top of the car. Why do they keep it? It's tradition. So that's kind of the only answer I ever got.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate you coming in, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next week.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Public hearings, we have none. Items for consideration, Commissioner Smelker.
I move for the approval of claims in the amount of $123,664.32, approved by the county administrator on 4/25 of '23.
Is there support? Support. Motion by Smelker, support by Hatfield for approval of claims in the amount of $123,664.32, approved by County Administrator on 4/25/23. Discussion? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Doster?
Aye.
Getty? Aye. Hatfield?
Aye.
Smelker?
Aye.
Tunison?
Aye.
Carlton?
Aye.
Campbell?
Aye.
And Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved.
I move for the approval of prepaid invoices in the amount of $3,336,477.40.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Calton for approval of prepaid invoices in the amount of $3,336,477.40. Discussion. Hearing none. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Getty,
Aye.
Hatfield,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Tunison,
Aye.
Carlton,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Doster,
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved.
I move for the approval of claims in the amount of $71,424.71.
Is there support?
Support Doster.
Motion by Smelker, support by Doster for approval of claims in the amount of $71,424 and $424,071. Geez, let me stir that again. $71,424.71. Discussion. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Hatfield,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Tunison,
Aye.
Carlton,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Doster,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved.
I move for the approval of Commissioners' reimbursement mileage in the amount of $448.02.
Is there support?
Support Campbell.
Motion by Smelker, support by Campbell for approval of Commissioner reimbursement mileage in the amount of $448.02. Discussion? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Smelker,
Aye.
Tunison,
Aye.
Carlton,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Doster,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Hatfield,
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved.
I move for the approval of the purchase agreement and conservation easements between Berry County and Paul and Sue Wing and Thomas and Heather Wing for property located in Assyria Township and authorize the chair to sign it.
Is there support?
Support. Tunison.
Motion by Smelker, support by Tunison for approval of the purchase agreement and conservation easements between Berry County and Paul and Sue Wing and Thomas and Heather Wing for their property located in Assyria Township and authorize the chair to sign it. Discussion. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Tunison,
Aye.
Carlton,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Doster,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Hatfield,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chair, I move for the approval of closing documents and the disbursements of funds for the conservation easement and purchase agreement between Berry County and Paul and Sue Wing and Thomas and Heather Wing for property located in Assyria Township and authorize the chair to sign it.
Support Campbell.
Support by Campbell. Motion by Smelker, support by Campbell for approval of closing documents and disbursements of funds for the conservation easement and purchase agreement between Berry County and Paul and Sue Wing and Thomas and Heather Wing for property located in Assyria Township and authorize the chair to sign it. Discussion? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Carlton,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Doster,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Hatfield,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Tunison,
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chair, I move for the approval of attached pay scale for 2023, 2024, and 2025 for the general fund department heads and non-represented employees, increasing the wage scale each year by an additional 3% for 2023, 3% for 2024, and 1% for 2025, effective June 3rd, 2023, and to increase the salary for the general fund department heads in 23 and 24. Did I skip a line?
Yep.
In accordance.
And to
Effective
increase the
June
salary
3rd.
for the county administrator.
To increase the salary for the county administrator in 2023 and 24 in accordance with the pay scale increase for general fund department heads in 2023 and 2024. You better reread that.
Is there support?
Support. Hatfield.
Motion by Smelker, support by Hatfield for approval of the attached pay scales for 2023, 2024, and 2025 for general fund department heads and non-represented employees, increasing the wage scales each year by additional 3% for 2023, 3% for 2024, and 1% for 2025, effective June 3rd, 2023, and to increase the salary for the county administrator for 2023 and 2024 in accordance with the pay scale increase for general fund department heads in 2023 and 2024. Discussion.
Yes, oh, go ahead.
I'm still going to vote no on this. I voted no last week, so I'll vote no this week.
You are consistent. Commissioner Doster.
Do we know, how much money that, we're talking about here? How much money does that actually amount to, this increase?
Excuse me, 2023, it's estimated at 600 and, no, pardon me, $455,804 is the first year. So yeah, it's a significant amount of money. That is our single largest expenditure, are our staff. So absolutely, it's
And then the following year would be an additional 5%
on that, yes.
And do we have, I mean, has anyone in the board actually looked into this, whether we can afford to do this? I know we don't have a finance committee, which would be helpful in a matter like this to give an opinion to the rest of the board.
Yeah, the information we were waiting for was the information that Mashia Rose gave to us from County Equalization. You might have been gone when she did that presentation.
I saw it online.
So,
The increase expected in the property values increasing, that's where you think that this money will come from?
county revenues have been fairly flat between 0.5% and 1.5% for years, just with inflation being very tame. Well, with inflation going through the roof the last couple of years, that also impacted property values, which translated into a bump. And having conversations with several of our department heads, the one thing that kept coming back was that we need to do something for our county employees. So we have discussed that with Michael in some detail, and he's crunched those numbers, and we can show you that spreadsheet as well if you want to see what it looked like with various raises and scenarios. But ultimately, that was the one that looked like it was most affordable, that did the best for our county employees as soon as we could possibly get it to them.
And then this is an offer that has not been accepted yet? Is that, how does this work?
That's correct. So
transactionally?
for the general fund department heads and non-reps, they are a non-bargaining group. So
So they
there
won't
is
see
no, it's just,
acceptance or-
yeah, this is what's being proposed. And that can be put in place right away. The rest of the groups, we have two command groups at the Sheriff's Department, one with corrections and one with our sworn officers. We have then a corrections division and a deputies division at the Sheriff's Department. And then we have the Employees Association, which are the courthouse employees here. Those groups, we've put together a letter of understanding, which you have in your packet. That will be forwarded on for their signature. And we are not intending, it's not intended to open the bargaining agreement. It is simply an offer, if you may. And I have not, in fact, I've received one back already from one of the groups. They signed it and have returned it. But I don't anticipate that we will have any resistance, if you may, from any of the other groups.
I know that the board has had some discussions on building a new COA building. Do you see that this impacting this $500,000 a year for?
I do not. No, we've already talked through where those funds are coming from and how to set those aside already. The COA has come back with a building plan that's a little bigger than what I anticipated, so they may be doing a capital campaign on their own as well. Some details will be following on that, so.
They're going to have to. We've already discussed that at the building committee.
Okay.
So they're well aware of that.
Okay. And just to go back to the conversation last week, Commissioner Tunison and Commissioner Smelker voted no on this, but they voted no on it because our current county compensation commission sets the rates of our elected officials' pay for 2023 and 2024. By statute, we cannot intervene even with an instance like this and raise elected officials' pay. We have to stick with that statute. So to follow up on our conversation last week, I know we are going to talk to the Attorney General, Dana Nessel, on behalf of one of our state reps, and seeing, because of the extenuating circumstances with the inflation being a very large factor the last couple of years, if we could get an exception or a waiver to that, so we would be allowed to reward our elected officials as well.
And we're talking full-time elected officials. We're not talking commissioners.
Correct.
And we're talking
So,
every day.
We are going to
elected
continue
people.
we are going to continue to have that discussion and see if we can move that needle somewhat as well, but.
Mr. Chair, I was here before we had that commission, and it was a problem with, it was very awkward for commissioners or elected officials to be voting on their own raises, and it wasn't being done properly, and things weren't keeping up. And so going to that commission solved that problem. So I thought about it, since our last discussion. Some people talked about getting rid of it, and I would not suggest that. But I do agree with the idea of having them look at the extenuating circumstances of these last couple of years with inflation. But I would not be in favor of getting rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Let's hope we can move the needle with our state.
Mr. Chair, along those lines, when I was on commission, they had it as well, and I think it killed it off before you resurrected it. And it was done primarily for that purpose as well. It had become so politicized and took up so much time of the board to set the salaries that it kind of became overwhelming. And I think it was the board just prior to mine that had put that into effect, and we felt relieved. For one thing, it's incredibly difficult for this board to vote on its own salary. It's easy to vote on everybody else's. But the committee did work effectively, at least for a while. So it might be who's on the committee is more of a problem than the committee structure itself. Because I think it then kind of went astray and then got killed off and then resurrected, and now we're talking about killing it off once again.
Yeah, but I bet if you were to ask these elected officials that have been left out of this process how they feel, I think they're going to feel differently. That they feel like they have been left out.
Oh,
you know what I mean? So I mean, and underappreciated. And that's what I worry about, is that they're feeling underappreciated. And I want them to know how much we value them. So that's why I voted no.
Yeah, well, I understand that completely. What I'm suggesting is maybe we put a different set of candidates on that board.
I'm not sure it's the candidates as much as the statute that's tying our hands right now. That if the statute allowed us to compensate, our elected officials based on economics, I don't think there'd be a discussion on the compensation committee, but it's because our hands are tied with this decision that it's come up. So if there's another solution, I'm personally not against the compensation committee, but we have to work through that process, and it may take a minute to do that, so.
Michael, did you, last week, did you state that it was?
Is your microphone on, Commissioner Doster?
I don't know, I thought it was. It's out.
Okay.
I don't hear it back, though.
The light doesn't, it's not on. So
I think the battery's dead.
Okay.
So probably I was the one you were referring to. The mellifluous voice is up. Last week, didn't you suggest that maybe we have a council to discuss what would occur necessarily if we were to eliminate that board, whether their actions for this 2 years under this statute, I mean, that's your interpretation, but maybe there is, maybe that there's some leeway there. Because I don't see how, if a board serves at the leisure of this board, and you eliminate that board, how its decisions can go 2 full years in advance after you've eliminated that board, when they serve at our pleasure.
Yeah,
I'm not walking away from
I agree with you.
grab something.
So perhaps having our council present would be a small price to pay to see whether that is in effect true.
We have engaged counsel already to discuss that, so, and Michael can give you a better, articulate those details.
So,
So I did reach out to corporate counsel and ask that question and continue to get the same response that in Public Act 485 of 1978 is really not a very long act. For better or worse, I don't know in this case, I guess maybe for worse, but the interpretation is that, and the part that comes back is the County Officers Compensation Commission, it says shall determine the compensation of the elected officials of the county other than judges, which determination shall be the compensation of those officials unless the County Board of Commissioners rejects the determination by resolution adopted by 2/3 of the members elected to and serving on the board. It says unless rejected, the determination again shall be effective at the beginning of the first odd-numbered year after the determination is made. If the determination is rejected, the compensation then in effect for those officials shall continue. So it's not the may, it's the whole concept of shall, and once once you've determined that you're gonna, by statute, have this compensation commission, and I understand that it's a little difficult because you didn't, not all of you, but you as a body did. Not all of you were here at the time it was created. Choose to have the compensation commission. You've chosen to follow that statute, if you may, until such time as you eliminate or abolish, and that has happened over the years. We had the compensation commission early in my career, and then in, I think it was 2004, the compensation commission was abolished, and then it was reinstated again in 2017, and now has been in place since 2017, or effectively beginning in 2018. And then it goes on to say that they shall set it for the 2-year term. So I'm happy. It was out of my conversation with corporate counsel that the suggestion to ask the Attorney General through our state legislator if there was the ability to change that midterm. The other option is to go to the legislature and ask the legislature to amend the statute allowing for that. Maybe in an unusual circumstance such as this, where you have inflation that is well beyond what was contemplated when this, in fact, was the compensation was put in place. So the Compensation Commission conducted their work in 2022 for 23 and 24. Well, it wasn't fully understood. We may have seen it coming a little bit, but it certainly wasn't understood until into 2023 what inflation really was and the impact. So those are a couple of options that we may, or at least have been suggested that we explore, and we can do that if the board would like.
Other questions from commissioners?
yes, Mr. Chair. Part of this could seem like deja vu, because it seems like I might have had this conversation with you 12 years ago. But the possibility of connecting elected officials' raises to either, represented bargaining unit, non-represented unit, or what the thought of if since inflation is the whole thing creating this, tying it directly to the rate of inflation, is that something that can be done as an option?
Interesting question. Again,
Inside or outside of the compensation commission, I guess is the question. You're talking
Yeah.
about getting away with
If we
the
got rid of the compensation, since, okay, so you didn't like the way the compensation commitment went because you didn't catch the rise in inflation. So, you know, it seems to me like you can't play it both ways. Either you go with the compensation commission and agree with it. It seems like in 2 years they'd eventually catch up, you know, since they meet every couple of years. But if that's not responsive enough, you know, having that 2-year delay before they deal with that, to directly tie it to inflation, since this whole conversation is that the elected officials did not get an opportunity to catch that growth of inflation.
I think, yes, either by statute, if they change it at the state legislature, that could compensate or that could add it in. But if we did away with the compensation commission, you can set those rules up. As a board, we can approve those rules for future compensation. But that would probably take an ad hoc committee to set that up, review it, take some pieces out of the compensation commission that you like as a statute and create your own, so.
One last question, if you'll indulge me, is if we decided to end the compensation commission again, how long would it take to kill?
So it's simply by resolution. It was adopted by resolution, and you'd adopt a resolution, much like they did in, what, 2000, and did I say 4? Yeah, to abolish it. And it would not take effect until 2020, effectively 2025. The Compensation Commission meets every even-numbered year to set the compensation for then the following 2 years. So they last met in 2022 and set it for 23 and 24. They would meet again in 2024 to set it for then 25 and 26, unless the county board abolishes the compensation commission, in which case you would then set the compensation for 25 and beyond.
So it really can't take, anything we did, even to kill it, would take 1.5 years.
Yeah.
That is correct, and that, I think that goes a little bit to, or maybe a lot, to Commissioner Doster's question and that, in probing, if you may, about when this would take effect, is in talking with corporate counsel, their interpretation is that the county board their hands are tied. They can't increase it or change it for 23 or 24. And if they were to eliminate or abolish the compensation commission, they still can't change it for 23 or 24. What's been put in place has been put in place. You can't effectuate the compensation of the elected officials until 25. I hate to be the one, and please understand, through all those elected officials, that as I'm sitting here, I'm not necessarily defending that it's right, but that's, as I've researched it and tried to work through, and we could ask Dave Stoker, our attorney, to attend a meeting if you'd like, and maybe he can add some or shed some additional insight into it, but.
Okay. Commissioner Smelker, and then Commissioner Tennyson.
We set in on negotiations. We made our contracts with our employees for 5-year contracts. And in 2 years, we changed it. But we have a compensation committee that can't change anything at all when inflation hit like it did. I don't have anything against the compensation committee. It's the laws they're going by. But when we gave the bonus, that was in 23. I asked for them to look at that and they wouldn't do it. bonuses for the elected. We are treating our elected like second-class citizens. We need to take the responsibility, and we're the ones that should control the wages there, not a compensation committee that don't have to answer to no one. I'm done.
So respectfully to my fellow commissioners that plan on voting.
Commissioner Tunnison?
I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to ask Commissioner Carlton, I understand why you guys did it, but my view is that we need to send a signal to our elected officials that we're going to do the right thing in the future. And I would like to see it in our control versus some other commission's control that we have no control over. That's all. And because I think what's happened, like John just said, what's happened to our elected officials, they're very disgruntled right now because of this. And we have no control over it for a year and a half, like you just said, another year and a half.
Yeah, and I do think it's a separate conversation than what we're voting on here. I don't think voting no on it, and respectfully, helps that cause. It's a separate conversation. The elected officials and employees.
I agree. I said that last week, that I value our employees. It was more of a state, no different than the chair said. These guys were voting no because of this. It's not against employees. I'm
Vice
voting
Chair
no.
Hatfield?
The legislation that created the opportunity to put a compensation commission together, does that mandate that it cover both the elected officials and the elected full-time employees, as well as the part-timers like the commission? Because I understand why there was a desire to create a commission, because it was awkward for the commissioners to be adjusting their own pay. But I don't think that that was a concern as far as the other elected officials. So can a compensation commission be structured so that it only covers commissioners and not the other elected officials?
I can ask, it's a question that I'll give you an answer, and then potentially may want to even seek advice of our corporate counsel. But I think that it does cover both, and here's why. It reads, the county officers' compensation commission shall determine the compensation of the elected officials of the county other than judges. And then it goes on to, so it exempts judges, but it doesn't exempt anybody else. So it says the elected officials of the county, and the county commission are elected officials of the county. So I don't believe that there is the ability to say we want to have a compensation commission, if I'm understanding your question right.
No, I think you understand it correctly.
For-
I guess that my current thinking is that if we do not have the ability to differentiate, then I would rather probably struggle with the issue of having to set our own compensation in order to be able to have control over what's done for the other elected officials. Yeah, it's just, I realize there's a political price to pay for that, but I think I'd rather see us bite the bullet and have to struggle with that. But that's a conversation for another time.
It's a future
place.
conversation. That's
Yep.
correct. If there are no other questions from commissioners, oops,
Just
Commissioner
one
Campbell?
short input, everybody else is, so I'll take a shot at it. I think the idea of the compensation committee, we all know that it's a great concept, it's a great idea. It makes us put it on somebody else so we're not getting blamed for something maybe we didn't intend to be blamed for. But I don't think that when that was put in, it was anticipated that there'd be this big flaw that we're having right now. And it is a big flaw. It's not right. And if we can't cure that and keep the compensation, then we need to get rid of it, because it's just not fair to our elected officials to go that way. We found a flaw that wasn't anticipated before, but now we know about it. And now it's up to us to do something to correct that flaw.
Thank you. Gary White.
Gary White. It's for 2 years. If elected officials can't hold off for the compensation committee to come back, it's for 2 years. When the compensation committee got put back in the state, the elected officials got quite a large one-time, and you're talking like $10,000, $15,000 that they adjusted up, okay? So you need to go back and review. Right now, this 3%, I want to address that because I asked the other one to be pulled off, Jay. If you have a $30,000 employee and he gets 3%, he gets about $900. If you have a $60,000 employee, he gets 3%, he gets $1,800, right? When those two employees go into the market down here and they look at that gallon of milk, guess what? That gallon of milk is the same for either one of them. Now we're talking department heads on this one right here. What in the world are they going to get? How many thousands of dollars? 400 and some odd $1,000. And you've already got agreements in place for all these people. You really need to look at, if you're going to do something for the employees of Berry County, a fixed rate for each employee. Have it $1,400 to adjust. If somebody's making more money, they don't deserve an astronomical amount more of money, because the rate of inflation when you go to that store is the same for that person that is just started here as compared to not. You're trying to negotiate a whole lot of money. It sounds like over $1 million in a couple weeks, where it takes months to do this in normal negotiations. You're not ready to make this decision today. You haven't invested enough time to find out what really needs to be done. You need to take at least one more meeting in COW before you make a decision on either one of these things, because your problem is attraction, not retention as much. If you can't attract those people because your wage is too low, and then you make the gap even larger for the retention people that have been here, and then you can't attract the other people that you need here to get to that retention area, you're looking at the wrong thing. This can't be done in a 2-week process like you're trying to do because, oh, we have money sitting there. That money is not really sitting there. I was shocked when I heard $400 and some $1,000 for this group of people here. I don't even know how many's in this group of people and what the average increase is going to be.
Here, I'm going to interrupt for just a minute. That was for all of the bargaining, everyone, this group and the bargaining groups. My apology if I didn't answer
What was the
the correct.
$600,000 for? Because you had another number that so I'm sitting there.
No, it was I looked at the wrong, it was the 455 is what we estimate for the group.
Yeah.
So it's not just for the department head.
But I'm still seeing the same people walking into the store paying the same thing for that. So one person has to have a hamburger because he doesn't get the raise, and the other person can have steaks for the community. You got to get a gallon of milk. Well, I can get a half gallon of milk as compared to getting a gallon of milk. You got to make it fair for all the employees with a raise, not by percent. It's just like what's said with Faro up here, right? Why does the state police, they have a red bubble on top? It's tradition. Percentages are tradition. Your need is not to stay in a tradition. Your need is to attract employees and put a wage in there that attracts them so you can have retention at a later rate. So you are not ready to make this decision today. You ought to table both of these things and look into everything. It's going to be a fiasco.
Thank you. Additional questions for Michael?
I guess I have a question along Gary's line. So, and he asked me this question, but what is our problem with, is it compensation, starting out pay, retention? I mean, obviously, it's just like I told him, any business is having the same problem. It doesn't matter. But I've heard you talk about pay scale before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, employee-wise, what's the best benefit for them? A bonus of 3%, or, I know where I'm going with this.
Well, sure, I'll do my best to answer it. Couple of things, as a percent, that is what is the standard. We have negotiated my career here. It has been percentages on the scales, right or wrong. As you look at how our peers do it, it's percentages. I'm not suggesting that there aren't some out there that do a flat dollar amount, but as we look and do comparable work, and I say we, our attorney often does that search. It is in terms of percentages. As I go to my counterparts in our peer groups and our roundtables, if you may, folks are talking about, unless it's like we did a year ago, or thereabouts, the on-scale or off-scale bonus and amount, unless it's something like that, we're often or always talking about percentages. Certainly, from an employee's perspective, nobody will say that a bonus doesn't have some value. Don't get me wrong, but it's on scale that's important to folks.
Yeah.
It's knowing what that is year over year. It has growth to it, if you may, and that's the challenge. It's hard as we've tried to put money on the scale over years. That has to be sustainable. That's the hard part about adding to a pay scale, right? And I don't mean to lecture or tell you things, but I share this because a little bit of the weight that is on my shoulders.
Yeah.
As I'm trying to make sure that it's sustainable.
Yeah.
I have to be able to ensure that next year, the year after, and the following year, as those numbers, because they're on the scale, compound, that we can afford them.
Right.
It does us no good to, and again, I guess I'm taking a minute to get inside of my head, and for employees and anybody else that's interested, it does no good to put too much on, only to have to turn around and make cuts. We've been very, very fortunate over my career that we've had stability. Unfortunately, that stability to some degree has gotten us to a spot that we now are behind. I can't tell you exactly how much we're behind. We could spend months trying to do comprehensive analysis and salary studies. I just don't think that that's where the best time's spent right now.
No, probably not.
Right
No.
now, it's trying to get something on the scales. And while it does seem like a lot, 13%, no, 11%, I guess. Well, it'd be 13, but it's an additional over what we bargained on the two. So you're talking about 3, 6, 7, an additional 7% over 3 years. It isn't in comparison to where we're behind. That's what concerns me is we just know. And the unfair playing field, if I can use that term, and I don't mean that when I say unfair, we don't have the tax base that Kent County, Kalamazoo, Calhoun County, Ingham County has, but those are and have become our, where we're competing both for talent and trying to retain where our talent is going. So we have to, I don't want to look at them too closely because I don't want to, I know what we're going to find out.
Yeah.
And we're not going to like it at all.
Yeah.
So we're
Well-
trying to really, with this bridge, some type of a happy medium that,
And I think as we get
Recognize the staff.
into late 2024 and into 2025, and those contracts come up for negotiation again, we may very well have to look at compensation and see where we're at on the scale for some of those things right now. We did do the inflation impact bonuses. Those were done on a $4,000 basis to every employee. So we have done some of what Gary has suggested in the past.
Not every employee.
Not every employee. Thank you, sir. But right now, if we start trying to pick and choose who gets what and when, I don't think you're going to get buy-in from the unions. I think you're going to have pushback on some things because they're going to think some deserve more than others. You're gonna kick over a hornet's nest there that's going to take months and months to resolve. And the message that we have consistently got from courts, from department heads, from the people we've talked with, is we need help. We need immediate help, and more so that has been focused around retention, about we have good people working here that want to stay here, that want to live and work in Berry County, but they need help. And that's what, when we took this into consideration and what we had available, we wanted to send some immediate relief as fast as we could to our employees and let them know that there is hope for the next 3 years, that they're not forgotten about. So that's where we came up with this plan of 331 going forward. I think it's a solid plan. It's a good plan. It's been well received from the department heads and the employees I've talked to. So it doesn't address everything, but I think Mr. White's comments are worth also taking note of and consideration. And at a time and a place when we do a finance committee and we have a little more time to discuss and go through some of this stuff, maybe we can look at this thing on a broader scale, but I think probably the time to do that is gonna be moving into 2024 and 2025. So it's been a long conversation on this. Any other comments before we vote?
Mr. Chair, in order to help build a little more consensus on this issue, because it's quite a large issue, and it'd be nice to have something that everyone felt a little more secure with, maybe. I would not be opposed to adjourning this another week and giving it a little more thought, or even having our attorney come to discuss the ins and outs of the compensation committee, because that seems to be sort of linked, even though it's not directly at issue here. I would be willing to do that. I would make a motion to adjourn this issue a week.
Further discussion? We need to get through this, Gary, as a board. I'm prepared to vote on it today. I think we've debated it, talked it through, and I think the Compensation Commission is an entirely long conversation we need to have at some point in the future, decide what we want to do with that. And I know Commissioner Tunison and I think Commissioner Smelker, I'm not sure who, has been working on an agenda request to address that issue, so.
I was.
And so there will be, that conversation will be coming up. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, I'm just, from Robert's perspective.
The motion dies for lack of a
Okay, you're comfortable with
Yes.
that as long as, okay, I just wanted to make sure that there was, perfect.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Campbell,
Aye.
Doster,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Hatfield.
Aye.
Smelker,
Nay.
Tunison,
Nay.
Calton,
Aye.
and Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved. Consent items that were moved to items for consideration. Item H for the consent agenda, moved to items for consideration. Commissioner Smelker.
I move for the approval of the renewal of the liability, vehicle, physical damage, and property and crime insurance coverage through the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority for the period of July 1, 2023 to July 1, 2024 in the amount of $481,247 and authorize the member representative to sign the agreement.
Is there support? Hatfield. Motion by Smelker, support by Hatfield for the approval of the renewal of the liability, vehicle physical damage, and property and crime insurance coverage through the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority for a period of July 1st, 2023 to July 1st, 2024 in the amount of $481,247 and authorize the member representative to sign the agreement. Discussion. Commissioner Doster.
My question regarding it was, when we discussed it before, we're overpaying the policy $20-some thousand a year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that had accumulated to about $1.5 million.
That's correct.
And that amount, that's held in escrow, is it? That's a non-interest bearing money?
Actually, it is invested, MMR,
Is it?
MMRMA.
You have,
invest.
is it invested at 1/4% or something, what would be comparable to what a CD would be?
I do not know. I can find that out. I apologize.
I just thought that $1.5 million.
I sure need it, right? But I'm trying to
You
get
know,
through.
sitting there with, a lot of these accounts are non-interest bearing, and, I mean, that, at 4%, that would be $60,000 a year. Would be a substantial amount of money that maybe we shouldn't be overpaying into this account and holding it ourselves if we can invest at a higher rate.
Yeah, hopefully as we get things rolling forward with a plan for the jail, that some of those funds, if we can take the jail, a potential jail failure off of the radar, then those funds can be moved into other areas, like the new jail.
Correct.
Additional comments? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Doster,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Hatfield,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Tunison,
Aye.
Carlton,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved. Item J, move from the consent agenda to items for consideration. Commissioner Smelker.
Mr. Chair, I move for the approval of the attached letters of agreement with the Berry County Corrections Supervisors, Berry County Corrections Division, Berry County Courthouse Employees Association, Berry County Command Officers Association, and the Berry County Deputy Sheriff's Unit, increasing the wage scale each year by an additional 3% for 2023, 3% for 2024, and 1% for 2025.
Support.
Support by Getty. Motion by Smelker, support by Getty for approval of the attached letters of agreement with Berry County Corrections Supervisors, Berry County Corrections Division, Berry County Courthouse Employees Association, Berry County Command Officers Association, and Berry County Deputy Sheriff's Unit, increasing the wage scale each year by an additional 3% for 2023, 3% for 2024, and 1% for 2025. Discussion. Quickly.
I asked it to be moved, but it also would have taken the first one that you just approved to actually do something. It's sad that we're stuck in tradition. We can't think outside the box. So the new employees that come in are still stuck at, well, not having much, looking for other ways. When you talk about Kalamazoo and you talk about Kent County being in the mix and stuff, let's talk about the concrete jungle of those things. Let's talk about the traffic jams. The traffic jams here are you have to wait an extra light in the morning or in the evening. The traffic jams there, you're talking about going 15 miles an hour in Grand Rapids. Let's talk about paying for parking. Let's talk about living in a place you don't really want to, or working in a place you don't want to live and you want to come back in here. Because you're stuck in your old traditions of this is how we do it, and we got to do it now because somebody might think of something different, it just doesn't work. You're going to pass this one also. It doesn't do nothing for your attraction of new employees of what, $700, $800, $900, but you have the retention of old employees that get thousands of dollars in raises. So did you do the right thing by running and rushing into it? You were talked into by your county chairman. Oh, we got to rush into this and get it done now because that's the way we do things around here.
And although for some who haven't been involved in the process, it may seem like we rush into this thing, this has actually been something that's been a topic of discussion and debate for many months. just so you know, that it appears to some people, when it pops up on the agenda, that it's a rushed item, but I assure you, this has been well thought out, well discussed, talked about. I've talked to judges and county heads and stuff, just so you know. Further discussion? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Getty,
Aye.
Hatfield,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Tunison,
Aye.
Carlton,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Doster,
Aye.
and Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved. Unfinished business, we have none. New business, we have none. County Administrator's Report.
I'm all set, thank you.
Chairperson's report. I was at Hope Township last night, just getting my meeting cycle started, so I'll be at Berry Township, and then Rutland Township and Prairieville next week, along with some economic development. Our first land bank meeting tomorrow, as well as Brownfield, so it's getting busier. Vice Chair Hatfield.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Campbell.
I just visited Syria and Maple Grove Township, and all is well.
Thank you. Commissioner Tunison.
I was at Carlton last night, and their renovations on the building, they've taken all their, pretty much used up their ARPA money. They're down to about $30,000 out of $175,000, I think. And it's really beautiful building they've done out there now. So very inviting. So, and I've got Hastings Township tonight.
Awesome. Commissioner Smelker.
Went to Thornapple and Freeport last night. Went to the MAC convention.
Right.
Attended the electric vehicle seminar and parliamentary procedure seminar. I violate a few rules there, Dave, and I probably won't change.
Agreed.
I wonder why you sent me to that.
I sent you to it twice. You only went once.
And that's about all. Thank you.
Commissioner Getty.
Nothing.
Commissioner Colton.
Oh, discussion in Woodland, both the township and the village. Lot of hail damage from a few months ago. Boy, if you look at that vinyl siding, it's just amazing how it just punctured through hundreds of holes. Woodland Village was having this discussion about they've gone to county zoning, and they were talking about, you know, happiness and unhappiness related to that. The Village of Nashville is discussing going to county zoning, and I'm going to put them in touch with some of the Woodland people so they can discuss how that experience has been going for them. And other than that, Nashville's been doing a $820,000 parking lot reconstruction project in the back of the stores. It's going to be gorgeous when it's done. But for some of our businesses and stuff like that, it's kind of difficult moving around and parking. That'll be done in mid-July.
Yeah. Thank you. Commissioner Doster.
I have nothing.
Thank you. Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, commissioners. I just wanted to take a moment to express my gratitude for the decision you made today to increase the wages of our staff. It is truly amazing to see that you recognize the important role our employees play with in the success of our county. I understand that not everyone is pleased with this outcome, but I can assure you that your decision is appreciated by most of our employees, at least from those that have expressed it to me. And so I just wanted to thank you and tell you that we do appreciate it.
Thank you, Anais. Additional public comment.
Dave Tosma, Mayor of the City of Hastings. In defense of what you're doing for your salaries right now, we had a workshop last night. It was about an hour long before our regular council meeting, and we talked about compensation for our employees. We're all in the same boat here in Berry County. You know, it doesn't matter if you're in Middleville, Hastings, or where you're at. We're all fighting for, we're fighting against Grand Rapids, Battle Creek, the bigger cities, to retain our talent. In the last year, we've lost police officers, we've lost appointed officials, to other cities that can offer more money. I was really surprised last night when we did our compensation workshop. I thought our wages were pretty fair, but we are low on everything, and I assume You know, just listen to what you guys are doing. And I know that's not a decision you made overnight to do what you're doing. I think this board is doing a great job. You know, I see a lot of positives happening, and, you know, I'm just hoping that we can emulate what you guys are doing, but keep up the good work. Thank you.
And I appreciate you coming on short notice today. Thank you. Additional public comment?
Yeah, Gary White. I guess I was, when I read the minutes from a couple meetings ago, and I was here also, when the chairman said that, well, the property wasn't on the property rolls anyways, or tax rolls anyways, so we wouldn't miss it. Sounds like you're gonna miss every penny you can. So the mental health property being sold to a nonprofit is probably not in the best interest in long term for the county when it comes to money. If you can get that developed and turn it, you know, into a $3 million private property that creates tax revenue, as compared to if the Y takes it over, creates no revenue for the county, it's something that needs to be considered. They have quite a few acres of property out there already that is, you know, not helping the county and its, I don't know, its economy, its income, its revenues. I guess if you can really afford to it, I'm not sure if you can afford to lower people's taxes down also then, correct? Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Sharon, I'm looking at you. All right, hearing none. We have no other business. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Doster.
I have nothing.
Commissioner Calton. Commissioner Getty.
Nothing.
Commissioner Smelker.
I've said enough.
Vice Chair Hatfield.
Nothing, sir.
Commissioner Campbell. One thing.
We realize in Berry County that we may be on the lower end on certain things, but we are at the top of the list of being a good area to live for our soul, and that's why I'm here.
Amen. Commissioner Tunison.
A couple things. I appreciate the discussion today about a lot of things that we've gone over, but towards the jail, I do want everybody to know here that we are being very aggressive on the jail. Chairman has been working diligently on it, and we are going to get something done with it. I'm convinced of that.
Thank you. I have nothing. Without any objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, and have a great day, and enjoy this beautiful stretch